Ever wonder where England really began? Not with kings and queens and fancy castles, but way, way before that. We're going to travel back in time to a forgotten Roman province, a land totally abandoned by its protectors, and watch as a new people, a new kingdom, and even a new language are forged from the ashes. This is the origin story of England. So here's our game plan. We're going to journey through nearly 600 years of history in 5 parts. We'll start in a land left without its legions, then see who shows up to fill the void, the Anglo-Saxons. We'll explore their biggest wins and their scariest threats, uncover the very first poems written in English, and finally, watch how their entire world came to a sudden, dramatic end in 1066. Let's dive in. Okay, so to really get how England started, you have to picture what happens when one of the world's greatest empires just packs up its bags and leaves. Right around this year, 410 AD, the last of the Roman legions sailed away from Britain. I mean, after centuries of Roman rule, their armies, their laws, their protection, it was all just gone. Poof. This left the island and its native Celtic people completely exposed and, well, incredibly vulnerable. You know, a power vacuum never lasts long, does it? That wide-open, unprotected island didn't go unnoticed. For 3 powerful and pretty ambitious Germanic tribes from across the North Sea, this looked like a massive opportunity. So around 449 AD, they started to arrive. 3 main groups. You had the Jutes, the Saxons, and the Angles, and they all sailed across the sea, carving out new homes for themselves all over the island, from the sunny southeast coast all the way up to the north and the east. And here's a cool little tidbit. We actually get the name of the country from one of these tribes. See, the Angles, they settled the biggest chunk of territory, and their new home became known as Angleland, the land of the Angles. And over time, that just smoothed out into the word we know today, England. But they didn't just form one big, happy country. Oh no. Instead, they pushed the native Celts to the edges of the island, to places like Wales and Cornwall, and set up 7 of their own major kingdoms. And these kingdoms were often at war with each other. This whole patchwork of realms, known as the Heptarchy, became the very first foundation for a new nation. So these brand new kingdoms were being forged in the heat of 2 huge opposing forces. You had one that came to build things up, and another that seemed hell-bent on burning it all down. This whole period was just full of these dramatic turning points. First, in 597 AD, a monk named St. Augustine shows up. And he doesn't just bring Christianity, he brings a piece of technology that was an absolute game-changer: writing. For the very first time, this culture of storytellers and singers could actually write down their own history, their own sagas. But then, a cruel twist of fate. Just as they start writing everything down, a new terror arrives from the sea: the Vikings. And they went straight for the monasteries, the exact places where these precious books and manuscripts were being created. They were burning books, destroying history, and threatening to wipe out this new culture before it even had a chance to bloom. But just when it looked like it was all over, one leader stood up against the tide: King Alfred of Wessex. He wasn't just an amazing warrior who defended his kingdom. He was a scholar who championed the English language itself. He personally translated great works into Old English, making sure that their stories and their culture would survive. And it was out of all this turbulence, this mix of faith, invasion, and sheer survival, that something truly incredible was born: the very first literature ever written in the English language. This new literature really had 2 different flavors. The earliest poems are totally heroic, very pagan. They're all about warriors fighting for glory against this powerful, unchangeable sense of fate, which they called word. But later, as Christianity spread, the monks who were writing these stories down started to blend that old warrior code with new Christian ideas and values. So what did this poetry actually sound like? Well, forget everything you know about rhyming. The Anglo-Saxon poets, or Scots, they used these 3 really powerful tools to create this heavy, rhythmic, thumping sound. It was perfect for chanting out loud in a crowded, firelit mead hall. Now, kennings are probably one of the most famous and my favorite features of their poetry. Think of them like poetic riddles. They're just a way of saying something simple in a much more creative and beautiful way. For instance, one of these poets, they'd never just say, "the sea." I mean, where's the fun in that? It's too simple, too direct. Instead, they'd use a kenning. They'd call it the whale road. Isn't that just a fantastic image? It paints this incredible picture of a great highway just for these massive creatures. So much more powerful. So After hundreds of years of invasion, of settlement, of creating this entirely new culture, the Anglo-Saxon era didn't just slowly fade away. No, it came to a sudden, violent, and incredibly dramatic end. The whole thing comes down to one single date, one year that changed everything. It's a date that every school kid in England has to learn, and for a very good reason. At the Battle of Hastings, an invading army from France, led by Duke William, who would soon be known as William the Conqueror, defeated the last Anglo-Saxon king. And this wasn't just a change of management. The Norman conquest was a total cultural reset. It brought the French language to the ruling class and sent the English language down a completely new path, forever. So, the Norman conquest slammed the door on an entire era. But even though their world vanished in 1066, its echoes are all around us. The next time you use a simple, strong, everyday word like earth, water, fire, or friend, you're not just speaking modern English, you're speaking their language. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Just how much of their spirit still lives on in the very words we use every single day.